The living creatures he sees emerging from the midst of the fire are seraphim, burners, for he makes angels as his messengers and fiery flames as his servants. The fire is surrounded by a glory. The fire is surrounded by radiance, within which the fire wraps around itself. Yet it provides a revelation of itself. The angels, they are servants or officials of Jesus Christ, or ministers to carry out his will. It is a glory of God to have such servants. But even more glorious is that, despite this, he does not need them. The angels here are referred to as his angels and his messengers, for they are under his authority and obedient to his commands.
And of the angels he saith, who maketh his angels spirits, and his ministers a flame of fire. Hebrews 1-7.
They are like wind and blazing fire, meaning they appear in wind and fire according to some. Or they are as swift as the wind and as pure as fire. Or he makes angels his ministers, as the Apostle Paul quotes. They are spiritual beings, and whatever vehicles they possess are in accordance with their nature, for they certainly do not have bodies like ours. Being spirits, they are far removed from the burdens of human nature and much closer to the divine glories. They are radiant, swift, and move upward like fire, like a blazing fire. In the vision of Ezekiel, they fly here and they're like lightning. Ezekiel 1:14. That's why they are called seraphim, the burners. Whatever they are as God made them, as God continues to make them. Their existence comes from him. With the existence he has given them, they are supported by him in that existence, and he uses them as he desires. In the book of Ezekiel, it is said that Jesus Christ covered the vision of his throne so that the dazzling light and glory do not overwhelm us by spreading clouds as his covering. His essence is veiled by his glory, and from the light of his glory, divine energy, he created the angels as his servants.
And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud. In the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face. And I heard a voice of one that spake, Ezekiel 1:26-28.
1. The cloud was accompanied by fire, like the cloud on Mount Sinai where God dwelled in thick clouds. Yet the glory of the Lord appeared as consuming fire, and his initial appearance to Moses was within the flames emanating from the burning bush. For our God is a consuming fire. This is a dazzling fire, KJV, a fire that wraps around itself, a fiery sphere, a circle of fire, or a wheel of fire, as God is the cause of his own existence, the ruler of his own being, and the purpose of his own existence. Then, if likened to fire, he is like a fire that wraps around itself, or as some read it, ignited by himself. The glory of God's fire shines brightly, but the fire quickly wraps around itself, for God reveals to us only a portion of his ways. The wrathful fire of God burns, but it also swiftly wraps around itself, because divine patience will not let all his wrath be kindled. If it were not a self-enveloping fire, O Lord, who could endure? 2. The fire is surrounded by a glory. The fire is surrounded by radiance, within which the fire wraps around itself, yet it provides a revelation of itself. Although we cannot see into the fire, cannot investigate to fully find God, we see the radiance surrounding it. Glimpses of this fire reflected from behind thick clouds. Moses could see the back of God, but not his face. We get somewhat of an understanding of God's nature from the radiance surrounding him, although we cannot comprehend it itself due to the stretched out clouds above. Nothing is easier than acknowledging that God exists, but nothing is harder than describing what God is. Even though God displays his wrath as fire, there is a surrounding radiance, for his holiness and justice will manifest gracefully in the punishment of sin and sinners. Even around the consuming fire, there is radiance, forever admired by the sanctified. 3. From this fire shines a gleam. We are not told who or what possesses this gleam, and therefore, I understand it as the entire framework of the vision that follows, which comes to Ezekiel from the midst of the fire and radiance. And the first thing he notices, before seeing everything in detail, is that it is gleaming bronze or bright yellow. That is, it appears like glowing coals, brightly lit. The color of burning charcoal, as some read the verse. The living creatures he sees emerging from the midst of the fire are seraphim, burners, for he makes angels as his messengers and fiery flames as his servants. 4. What emerged from the gleaming bronze-colored fire, upon closer inspection, resembled for living creatures. Not the living creatures themselves, angels being spirits, and not visible, but what resembled them, like symbols or representations deemed fitting by God to guide the prophet and us alongside him. To some extent, understanding the world of angels, a matter purely of divine revelation, is necessary to fill us with awe and reverence for the greatness of God, who has angels as his servants, and for the goodness of God, who has appointed them as servants for his people. And in the midst of them, there were also those resembling for living creatures, because the existence and power of angels come from God. They exist for themselves and for us, as God sees fit to make them. Their glory is a radiance from the glory of God. The prophet himself explains this vision, Ezekiel 10:20. I understood that the living creatures were cherubim, which is one of the names by which angels are known in Scripture. Daniel was informed of their number, 10,000 times 10,000, Daniel 7:10. However, despite their multitude, they are one. As Ezekiel is told here, they are one in essence and work, like an army, consisting of thousands, yet referred to as one body.